and we are now live on Facebook. So hello to everybody who's joining us in Zoom and to everybody watching on Facebook. My name is Rivka Cohen. I'm the program manager at JOFA, the Jewish Orthodox Feminist Alliance. And we are privileged to have with us on this webinar, Esther Macner. She's the founder of Get
Jewish Justice.
Sorry, there was some, sorry about that. We have with us Esther Macner, who is the founder of Get Jewish Divorce Justice, a nonprofit organization in Los Angeles dedicated to the prevention of get abuse in the Jewish divorce process through education, advocacy, and individual counseling. She has spearheaded the Batei Din of America's revision to the California prenup in 2015. She is also principal at Get Divorce Solutions, a divorce co-mediation practice that specializes in religious divorcing couples. She was also a member of JOFA's Aguna task force for many years and conducted continuing legal education seminars for attorneys with JOFA. She also holds a master's degree in Tanakh and is a sought-after teacher. Today on International Aguna Day, she is launching a global #FreeMeToo campaign for current and former Agunot. We are so privileged to have Esther here with us, and we thank you, Esther, so much for joining us and giving this shiur. For everyone watching, there is a link to the Sefaria source sheet for the shiur in the Facebook event, as well as in the JOFA emails we sent out. But if you still need it, you can email me at Rivka, RIVKA, @jofa.org, and I will send you the link. So thank you very much, and I will now turn it over to you, Esther.
Thank you, Rivka, for your introduction, and for all of you who are out there still fasting, try to halt cup, because what I want to do today is a combination of a traditional shiur, which I love, and also a call to action. As you know, today is International Aguna Day. Ta'anit Esther was designated informally as the day in which we study and think about the Aguna and solutions to the Aguna issue. I believe it was started by Ikar in 1990, and there was a bill in the Knesset in 2010 to make it a formal designated day, but the bill didn't pass. At any rate, informally, all over the globe, Jewish communities who care about this issue take Ta'anit Esther as the rallying day to study and do on behalf of the Aguna. I would like to say that this is an issue that I feel very strongly about, and I hope to convey both through learning and through some anecdotes about my experience working with Aguna for decades about the state of the Aguna issue today. So I'm going to let you know from the outset that I really do see Esther as a figure of hope and strength, because unlike Yiftach's daughter, she was a woman in power. And when you will hear the Megillah tonight, you may notice that when Mordechai started his fast, because he knew about the king's plan to annihilate the Jews on the 14th of Adar, Esther didn't know about it. She only learned about it when she heard that he's walking around the king's palace in sackcloth. And then he informed her, and then we know that he challenged her to use her position to sacrifice her life if necessary on behalf of the Jews. And she did that very successfully. But what she really did, her input, is that she made his fast that was local into a global fast. She said, gather all the, she said in, I think it's Perek Tet 29, she said, I'm sorry, I don't know exactly where it is, but she said, gather all the people through all the Medinot and declare a fast. We need to have the strength in numbers to make this successful. And from there, it became something that all the Jews did in all the Medinot. And not only that, I don't know if you're aware, but Esther is the only woman in all of Tanakh of which it is written that she wrote, Vatichtov Esther u'Mordechai et Megillah azot. Devorah and other great women sang, prophesied, but this is the only woman who actually wrote that we know of, and that in fact her book is written by her and some say Mordechai. The point is that after this event, she went to the Sanhedrin. The Talmud tells us in Megillah that she petitioned the Sanhedrin to have this day declared as an authoritative Purim, and the Megillah should be read every year. She was turned down on the first year, and then she went back and petitioned again, and the second time her petition was accepted, and that's recorded in Talmud Bavli, Megillah 7a. But be that as it may, Esther is a symbol of strength. I believe that the Aguna today is more like Yiftach's daughter, who is a victim. And I believe that many Agunot today are victims because they do not know that there are solutions to be had, and I will relate this through my experience after we learn about Yiftach's daughter. Okay, so let's go to the story of Yiftach's daughter. It is a story of great drama, and if you look at your source sheet, if you have it in source 1, which, by the way, is one of the Haftarot. If I'm not mistaken, it's with, I'm not sure. I think it's Behalotcha. I don't remember. But anyway, it's one of the Haftarot that we read during the course of the year. And it's interesting that the rabbis, when reading the Haftarah, end at the point in which there is no tragedy yet. So let me go to the story. If you look at your source sheet, this is the time of the Shoftim. It's before the monarchy. It is the time of charismatic leadership. The Israelites with Yehoshua come into the land, and there are wars. And if we tune into the time of Yiftach, the first 2 verses set up the stage. And they go like this. Yiftach Hagiladi haya gibor chayil. Yiftach was a noble warrior. V'hu ben isha zonah, but he was the son of a prostitute. Vayoled Gilad et Yiftach, but his father was Yiftach, a prominent person in Gilad. Vateled eshet Gilad lo banim, but his proper wife bore him sons. And these sons grew up, and they drove Yiftach out because they said, you are not going to inherit with us because you are the son of an outsider. So Yiftach fled from his brothers. So we have some foreshadowing here. First of all, halachically, I would just want to tell you that there is no such thing as an illegitimate son. there's only a mamzer, a child born out of wedlock, who's not married to anybody else at the time, has all of the rights of inheritance and all of the rights that a child born out of wedlock has. So there is no such thing as an illegitimate child. There is a mamzer, and a mamzer is the son of a relationship that is adulterous or incestuous. So the issue of the Aguna is if she doesn't get a get from her husband and she remarries, civilly she can remarry a second husband. Any children from that second husband are mamzerim. They are legitimate as far as being Jewish and as far as inheriting, but they cannot marry for generation to generation. The stigma goes on from one generation to the next. They cannot marry inside. They're outsiders. They can only marry other mamzerim if they are to marry Jews within the Jewish faith. Anyway, let's get back to our story. So what happens? He tells them, I'm going to paraphrase. They come to him, the elders of Gilad come to him when the Ammonites war with them, and they are in existential threat of losing the land and being annihilated by the Ammonites. And so they run to him, the elders run to him and say, Gilad, we need you. We need you to come back to us and be our leader. You're the only one who can really lead us into battle. And he says to them, who are you? You. If you look at verse 4, in verse 7, he says, Vayomer Yiftach lezignei Gilad, halo atem sneitem oti. And and he says, Yiftach replied to the elders, you're the very people who rejected me and drove me out of my father's house. How can you come to me now when you're in trouble? V'tigarshuni beit aviyim madua batem elai ata kasher tzar lachem. So he says. So they say to him, you know what? We need you. If you lead us into battle and are victorious, be our general. He says, I'm not going to be your general. If I'm victorious in this battle, I'm going to be your leader. I'm going to be your supreme leader if I am victorious. And they agree and they say, yes, if you lead us into battle, you will be our leader. And then the parrot goes on, and it's very interesting. He's very diplomatic. He does a lot of diplomacy before he goes into war, speaking to and relating the history of why the Ammonites are not in the right in their claim that this land belongs to them. And I won't go into that story, but it's very interesting. As far as we're concerned, he, if you look at, yes, so as far as we're concerned, this is a noble warrior, and he's also a religious man, a pious man. And when you look to verse 30, it says, in a moment of religious fervor, it says, Vayidar Yiftach neder ladonai, Vayomer, im naton titain et bnei Ammon biyadi, V'haya hayotze asher yetze midaltei beiti likrati v'shuvi v'shalom mibnei Ammon, V'haya ladonai valitihu olah. So this is where he makes the vow, and he says, and Yiftach made the following vow to the Lord. If you deliver the Ammonites into my hands, then whatever comes out of the door of my house to meet me on my safe return from the Ammonites shall be the Lord's, and shall be offered by me as a burnt offering. That's the pivotal moment. The Haftarah only goes up to the next verse that says he was victorious. And so now we have to go back and look at source 2 to the continuation of this perek. He makes that vow. And then what happens? He comes home victorious. And who comes out of his door? His daughter, who is there to celebrate his victory And she comes out dancing with timbers and joy to celebrate his safe return home. So this is what the pasuk says. Vayavo Yiftach hamitzvah el beito. He comes home. V'hinei bito yotzeit likrato. His daughter comes out to him. B'tupin uvimcholot. V'rak hi yichida. The pasuk goes out to say, and she was an only child. Ein lo mimenu bein ovat. He has no other son or daughter. This is his legacy. Vayihi kiroto ota vayikrat bigadov. And when he sees her, he tears his garment the way you do when you hear that someone died and you're about to sit shiva. He tears his garment. Vayomer ahabiti hachreya hechrati va'at hayit ba'ochrai. He rents his clothes and he says, alas, daughter, you have brought me low. You have become my troubler. V'anochi patziti pi et Adonai v'lo uchal lashuv. For I have uttered a vow to the Lord and I cannot retract. So what does she say to him? She says to him, Vatomer elav avi patzita et picha el Hashem. Father, she said, you have uttered a vow to the Lord. Aseli kasher yatzami picha. Do to me as you have vowed. Acharei asher asalacha Hashem nikamot me'ovecha mipnei amon. Seeing that Hashem has vindicated you against your enemies, the Ammonites. But she says, then I ask you one request. I accept this. Just allow me to go for 2 months to bewail my maidenhood with my girlfriends in the hills, and then I will come back and will take upon myself what it is that you have vowed to Hashem. And so it says in Pasuk Lametet, Vayihi miket shnayim chodashim vatashav el aviha. After 2 months' time, she returned to her father. She didn't run away. Vaya'as la et nidro asher nada. And he did to her as he had vowed. V'hi lo yada ish. She had never known a man. And whenever I read this, my stomach would churn. What a tragedy. And in fact, there are similar tragedies in Greek mythology. The tragedy is Iphigenia, of the great warrior who vows to sacrifice to the Lord, and then the daughter comes, and in some variation, she is then sacrificed, and in those stories, she's in fact put to death. And there are some in Chazal, I think Ramban, who says he actually put her to death, but I take the reading in the verses that in fact death means that she never marries and never has children. And in this case, she's also totally isolated. Now, let us go to Chazal and how they interpret this story. And let me tell you, it is astounding and amazing. And so let's go to source. For those who have it, we're going to source 3. The Gemara in Ta'anit interprets this story. And I'm just going to highlight our part of it. I would just say briefly that the Gemara talks about basically the context of what is a proper vow. What is a reasonable neder to make? I mean, it's in the context of taniyot that are made, and anyway, and it recounts Amar Rab Shmuel Bar Nachmani Amar Rab Yonatan Shlosha Sha'alu Shelo Kahogen L'Shnayim Hashivuhu Kahogen U'Le'echad Hashivuhu Shelo Kahogen. So they're discussing how 3 people entreated God in an unreasonable manner, meaning they made a vow that wasn't reasonable. And those 3 people, and for 2 of them, Hashem responded in a reasonable way, and to one, he did not respond reasonably, and that was Yiftach. And it goes on to compare, the vow that Eliezer makes in when he comes to look for a wife for Yitzchak, and he says the woman who comes out who's going to feed the camel, that will be the wife for Yitzchak. And then they go on and they say, wait a second, it could have been a slave that would have done this, or somebody who was not from the house of Israel, anything. How could he make such a vow? But nonetheless, Hashem sent him Rivka because it was for purposes of marriage. And also when Shaul makes the vow, when he's looking for a king, and he says, whoever's going to slay Goliath is going to marry my daughter and be the king. And it turns out that David was the one who slayed Goliath. And so, but because it was had to do with marriage, Hashem sent him David. But with Yiftach, it was different. And because he made an unreasonable vow, and they make a reference to a pasuk in Yirmiyahu, which I'm coming back to after we look at the Midrashim, they say that it was an unreasonable vow because it's a reckless thing to do, to say, whatever, an open-ended vow, whatever it is that's going to come out of my door, I'm going to offer to Hashem in the Beis HaMikdash as a korban olah. And a korban olah, they go on to discuss, it says it's going to be, I'll get into the discussion. This is going to be to the Lord. This actual thing that comes out of my door is going to be offered to Hashem. This is going to be the burnt offering, the most expensive kind of korban, completely offered to the Lord. So I'm going to come, and they cite a pasuk in Yirmiyahu, which I'll get back to after we look at the Midrashim that fleshes this out a bit. And Rashi cites to the Midrash in Bereshit Rabbah, and now I'm referring you to source 4, if you take a look at source 4. And Bereshit Rabbah then again speaks about, it comes in through Bereshit Rabbah because that's where Eliezer makes his vow about whoever is going to feed the camels. And I want you to look at the highlighted portion. It says, then it goes on to talk about Yiftach. Yiftach made an unreasonable vow. It says, where he says, V'haya hayotze asher yetze v'gomer v'halitihu ola laHashem. Ilu yetza chamar o kelev achat o chatul achat. This might even have been an ass or a dog or a cat. Hayam alehu ola, that he committed himself to bring as a burnt offering. V'zimein lo hakadosh baruch hu shelo kahogen. So in this instance, Hashem responded to him unreasonably. Hadahu d'chtiv, vayavo Yiftach v'gomer, v'hinei bito yotzeit l'krato. And his daughter happened to come to him. And then there's a discussion, which I love. The discussion in the Gemara. They're discussing this halachically. What is the status of this vow? Rabbi Yochanan and Reish Lakish have a dispute. Rabbi Yochanan Amar, Hekdesh Damim hayachayav. He didn't have to kill her. He could have done what's called a Hekdesh Damim, which means that if you cannot actually give the korban that you promised to give, you could give a monetary consecration. In other words, you can determine what's the value of this, sheep or goat or whatever that I consecrated as an olah. Even though they discuss, well, it's this, he didn't say for an olah, he actually said this is going to be the olah. He could have given her to the Beit HaMikdash the monetary value of the olah. He could have valued her worth in the marketplace, if you will, and to give money instead of actually forcing her to live a dead life, shall we say, by not being able to marry and in isolation. And Rabbi Yochanan disagrees. And he said, and Reish Lakish disagrees with Rabbi Yochanan, and he says, Afilu hekdesh damim lo haya chayav. He wasn't even liable for a hekdesh damim. Why? Ditnan. Amar al behemat shmeya v'al ba'alat mum harei elu ola lo amar klum. Because Reish Lakish said that he wasn't even liable for a monetary consecration, for we learned if one declares of an unclean animal or an animal with a blemish, behold, let this be a burnt offering, his declaration is completely null and void. Lo amar klum. This vow is void to begin with. It's as if he said nothing. This vow has no efficacy whatsoever. Amar, if he declared, behold, let these be for a burnt offering, they must be sold, and he brings a burnt offering for their money. Yes. So in other words, he says he didn't have to do anything at all. All he had to do is go to a Batei Din and bring the case and say, declare that this vow is void, and therefore she need not be punished in any way because I never said anything at all. I really didn't know that this is not an efficacious vow. And then what is amazing is that they Chazal scream out there, "V'lo haya sham Pinchas sheyatir lo et haneder." Wasn't there Pinchas's Batei Din that would have been able to absolve him of his vow? And the tradition is that Pinchas, lived for a very long time, and that's why Pinchas is associated traditionally with Eliyahu Hanavi. So Pinchas was around. Pinchas, the grandson of Aaron HaKohen, was around, and he had an established Batei Din. And why didn't Yiftach go to his Batei Din and have this vow declared void? So it goes on, it says, Ella Pinchas Amar, hu tzarich li, vani elech etzlo. He needs me, Yiftach needs me, and I'm to go to him. So in other words, the Yiftach Amar, the implication is, I'm a high priest, son of a high priest. Shall I go to an ignoramus? Let him come to me. And Yiftach said, Yiftach Amar, ani rosh k'tzinei Yisrael, v'ani holech li etzel Pinchas. I am the leader. I'm the quasi proto malchut here. He, Pinchas, should come to me to convene this Batei Din, to declare, to make a ruling on this vow. Batei Din l'dain avda hanahara hahi. And between the two of them, the maiden perished. And there are some indications in the Midrash about, between the midwife and the mother who are crying out, the baby dies. So because they were having their ego battle, Yiftach probably didn't even know that his vow was not valid, and he didn't bother going to the Batei Din, and the Batei Din didn't bother coming to him, and because the two of them didn't get together, one didn't recognize the other, she perished. Not only that, the Midrash goes on to say, by the way, if you look in Shoftim, Yiftach only rules for 6 years, which is not a long time for these Shoftim. And the Midrash goes on to say, they were severely punished. What was Yiftach's punishment? Yiftach says, Yiftach ma meit ben shilat evarim. Because the pasuk says that Yiftach died ba'arei Gilad, in the cities of Gilad, as if there was more than one city, the Midrash goes on to say he was punished by a severe disease in which his limbs fell off one by one, And in every place that his limb fell off, they buried that limb until he perished. And that was his punishment for what? For not annulling his vow and letting his daughter be sacrificed. And what was Pinchas's punishment? And it goes on there to say in Divrei Hayamim that Pinchas lost his Ruach HaKodesh because it says, Nagid, because it says, Nagid Haya Alehem, and Chazal refers this to Pinchas, that he was once a Nagid, he was once a leader among them, but he lost his Ruach HaKodesh. Why? Because he did not annul the vow. Now, how do I know? I want to get back now to Sefer Yirmiyahu, because this is the reference that the Gemara makes when it gives its terse statement saying, regarding Yiftach's daughter, I want you to go now to back to Ta'anit. It says in is it source 3? Anyway, it says one thing. It makes a reference to V'hainu Tekamar Laho Navi B'Yisrael. It is making a reference with regard to Yiftach's story to the pasuk in Yirmiyahu, Perek Chet, pasuk Chafbet. Let's look at that pasuk. It's verse 5. And this is astounding to me. What does the pasuk say? The pasuk is talking about, and Yirmiyahu is lamenting the decimation of the people of Israel. It's not he that's lamenting. He's saying that God is lamenting. He's speaking in God's voice that says, Hatzari ein begilad. Is there no balm in Gilad? Meaning, is there no cure in Gilad? Imrofei ein sham. Is there no physician to be found? Ki madua lo alta aruchat bat ami. Why has healing not yet come to bat ami, my poor people? Mi tein roshi mayim ve'eni mikor tima. Oh, that my head was water, my eyes a fount of tears. Ve'efke yomam v'layla et chalalei bat ami. Then would I weep day and night for the slain of my poor people, bat ami. Now, this is the brilliance of Chazal. They look at the word Gilad and they look at the word bat ami, and they also are sensitive to the fact that Yiftach's daughter is never named. She has no name. She is bat Yiftach. So, as Chazal always do, if she's bat Yiftach, we have to find her. Where is she? Who is she? And they find that bat ami is bat Yiftach, that unnamed daughter of my people, which here in Yirmiyahu is referring to the people as a whole. They say no. This is bat Yiftach that God is crying over day and night and lamenting. Why did they not find a physician? Where was Pinchas? He was the physician. Where was Pinchas? Where were the Dayanim? When my daughter, the daughters of my people, are sacrificed to a life of isolation, of barrenness, of a life in which Jewish children are not born, and they live in tragic isolation. Where are the physicians? And now let me tell you, I'll just give you 2 brief stories about my work here and why I think this is a call to action. I'll give you a case that I had a few months ago, and I get calls every day. A woman, I live now in Los Angeles. I've been here 9 years. I came from New York. A woman calls me and she says, and she's hysterical. She says, my son, who went off the derech, is getting married in 2 weeks to a Jewish girl. This is my son left Judaism because an Orthodox girl rejected him, and now he found somebody, and she's Jewish, but I found out that she was married before and never got a get. And not only that, I don't even know where he is. So I said, okay, give me her information. She lives in Toronto, and she's a professor, and I call her, and I ask her, I tell her about the get, and she's very emotional. She's very upset, and she's getting married in 2 weeks. And I say, listen, where were you living? What were you doing when you were married? She said she lived in Boston, and her husband was studying to be a pediatric surgeon, and that's all she knows. She hasn't been in contact with him. So I do my research. I look up Children's Hospital in Boston, and lo and behold, this man is there on the faculty, and I call him, and I tell him, you never gave your wife a get. Oh, he says, well, I don't have anything against it. I just don't know how to do this thing. And sure, why not? I can give her a get. I say, fine. And I call the Boston Batei Din, which happens to be the only Batei Din in New England. It is like the counterpart of the BDA. And I say, listen, we have a case here. We need to do this quickly. Can you set it up? They get in touch with him. They make an appointment next Thursday morning. He's coming to the Batei Din to give her a get. She lives in Toronto. We're going to get we're just going to do an agency, which you can do with the Toronto Batei Din, that she pick up the get from the Toronto Batei Din. Wonderful. Then I get another call from the Boston Batei Din. And they say the Toronto Batei Din will not recognize our get. They won't, the Toronto Batei Din doesn't recognize the Boston Batei Din. So I say, well, don't they have a rabbi in Boston? Well, the only rabbi they have there is like the deals in kashrus. Well, the only thing they would do is send one of their rabbis to oversee this get procedure, and that'll cost $1,000, and who knows how long it'll take. And she's getting married in 2 weeks, and they won't recognize the Boston Batei Din. This is Pinchas and Yiftach. Well, it had a good ending because the wedding was in Los Angeles, and the RCC here in Los Angeles does recognize the Boston Batei Din, and she got her get 2 days before the wedding. My point is that one Batei Din doesn't recognize the other, and they don't care that this woman is going to marry and be an Ashes Ish. Now, let me tell you another thing here. When I came to Los Angeles, and this is also called Teherangeles, because there's a huge Persian community here, and there was a custom in Persia, and up until the mid-'80s, even here in Teherangeles, that it was a kibbud to invite under the chuppah family members, close family members, to be the agent. And these close family members, halachically, are invalid witnesses, because under halacha, you can't have a brother, an uncle, a close family member be a witness because they're considered biased. And so therefore, if you do not, or they didn't even designate witnesses, if you do not have valid witnesses to the chuppah, there never was a marriage. And in cases of agunot, you could void that marriage, and that position was taken by Rabbi Moshe Feinstein and Rabbi Tzvi Pesach Frank and others in the past. And those weren't the only factors. These marriages could have been voided. And I had women here who were civilly divorced for 10 years, 15 years, whose husbands wouldn't give them a get. And they went to local Batei Din, and nobody did anything, because the position today is we don't look for a heter. We don't go there. We don't even ask who made the wedding and who were the witnesses, because these women had pictures. And this, and it must have been about 3 years ago when the International Batei Din, Rabbi Krause's Batei Din started. I called Rabbi Krause, and he said to me, Basically, don't you have a Batei Din in Los Angeles? This is a no-brainer. What? This can't be solved? You know, Hatzari ain't the Gilad? Are there no Dayanim there? And I, the International Batei Din came out here once a year and freed, in that very first year, 7 women, 5 of them based on void marriages, and 2 of them just based on the fact that they got a get in different ways. But it's my point being here is that women are not knowledgeable that there are solutions. There are solutions avoiding marriages where necessary, and women also are not aware in the great majority of, the Hasidic community that there are prenups and that the prenups are halachic, and it is not a halachic issue, which would take a whole different webinar. Maybe we'll do it on the prenup, that it's really not the halacha, but it's the social tenor of the times that we will do anything to deter divorce. And if the Aguna has to be the sacrifice for us to pretend that there are no unbearable marriages, and that marriage is conditional in Judaism, there's always a condition. You do not have to live with a man who is abusive. We are not Catholics. We believe in divorce. We are a nation of compassionate people, and that's our sign of being Jews. If women were aware of the fact that there are solutions, then maybe en masse, the way Esther went and got all the people together, if women could bypass their local rabbanim, their local Batei Din if necessary, their local jofas, their local get Jewish divorces, and learn and together march before their rabbis and say, we cannot live this way. We are not prepared to continue to be a sacrifice because it is killing us. It is killing our identity as Jews. It is flawing our love and our daughters' love of Judaism, because we are a compassionate people and there are solutions and we're not using them. So I'm telling you today as a call to action, if you know any Aguna or somebody who was a former Aguna, let them go on the my Facebook page where I'm starting a hashtag Free Me Too campaign. And I know that it is difficult for women to speak out. So I'm also going to start a private group for them to speak to each other. But the point is that this should be public. We need to say, let's talk about it. Let's talk about voiding marriages. Let's talk about conditional marriage, prenups. It's all there in the halacha to be had. And if Pinchas won't go to Gilad, if Pinchas won't go to Yiftach, and if Yiftach won't go to Pinchas, we, the women, like Esther, who went to the Sanhedrin, will have to declare, we cannot live this way anymore. Anyway, have an easy fast, and one step at a time, we'll get there.
Thank you so much, Esther. Thank you so much for that insightful and dynamic shiur, that heartfelt call to action, and those incredible stories, and for all of the work that you do. We're getting some comments in here. Thank you, that it was amazing, and I agree. And I hope that everybody who is watching this, either on Zoom or on Facebook or later on YouTube, will go to your Facebook page. What is your Facebook page called again?
Oh, it's Get Jewish Divorce.
Get Jewish Divorce.
I think it's Get Jewish Divorce.
Facebook
yes.
page,
yes.
and keep an eye out for the hashtag campaign, hashtag Free Me Too. I hope everyone has a wonderful fast and a Purim Sameach, and thank you once again, Esther.
You're welcome. Thank you.